hate me, don't you?
This creature is nothing but hate.
Is there actually a deeper reason why Soldier Boy kills in The Boys? Or are we just meant to see it as brute force and trauma playing out on screen? Because when you really step back and look at how Soldier Boy operates, his actions don't feel random, and they don't feel purely emotional either. They feel patterned, almost intentional, in a way that suggests there's something much more controlled underneath the surface. Something that hasn't been fully explained yet. And that's where this theory starts to take shape, because the idea that Soldier Boy killed someone like Quinn, whether literal or symbolic, doesn't just sit as a moment of violence, it starts to look like a decision, one that fits into a much larger way he sees the world. Soldier Boy isn't like most of the other supes in the story, especially not someone like Homelander, who operates from a place of ego and emotional instability, constantly reacting to how he's perceived. Soldier Boy, by contrast, comes from a completely different era, one defined by control, hierarchy, and a much harsher understanding of strength, and that difference shapes everything about how he handles conflict. When he eliminates someone, it doesn't come across as impulsive in the same way Homelander's actions do. It feels like enforcement, like he's applying a rule that only he fully understands. That's important because it suggests that his violence isn't just about anger. It's about maintaining a certain order, even if that order is deeply flawed. When you apply that mindset to the idea of him killing Quinn, it starts to shift the perspective entirely, because instead of asking what Quinn did in a specific moment, the better question becomes what Quinn represented in Soldier Boy's worldview. If Quinn stood for weakness, betrayal, instability, or even a challenge to authority, then the act of killing isn't just personal, it becomes ideological. Soldier Boy doesn't tolerate disruption, especially not from those he sees as beneath him or those who threaten the structure he believes in, and once someone crosses that invisible line, the outcome is almost inevitable. From his perspective, it's not cruelty, it's correction. But there's another layer to this that makes it even more unsettling, and that's the possibility that Soldier Boy's decisions aren't just about maintaining control in the present, but about reacting to something that was done to him in the past. His time in captivity, the experiments, the loss of control over his own body and mind, all of that leaves a mark, and when someone goes through that kind of experience, it changes how they see power and vulnerability. It's possible that what looks like calculated violence is actually a way of preventing himself from ever being in that position again, a way of eliminating anything that reminds him of weakness before it can grow into a threat. If that's true, then Quinn's death, or the idea of it, becomes something much more personal, not because of who Quinn was as an individual, but because of what they triggered in Soldier Boy. Maybe Quinn represented unpredictability, maybe they showed signs of defiance, or maybe they simply existed in a way that didn't align with Soldier Boy's rigid sense of order, and that alone would be enough. For someone like him, uncertainty is dangerous, and the easiest way to deal with danger is to remove it entirely. What makes this theory even more compelling is how it contrasts with the way other characters handle similar situations. Because where someone like Homelander reacts emotionally and often makes things worse for himself in the long run, Soldier Boy's approach is colder, more direct, and arguably more effective in the short term. He doesn't need approval, he doesn't need validation, and that makes him harder to predict because his actions aren't tied to how others see him, they're tied to how he sees the world. And in that world, there's very little room for ambiguity. At the same time, that rigidity is also what makes him dangerous in a different way, because it means there's no flexibility, no room for growth or understanding, and once he defines someone as a problem, there's almost no path back from that. That's what gives weight to the idea that his actions are part of a pattern rather than isolated incidents, because once you start seeing that pattern, you realize that anyone who fits certain criteria could end up in the same position as Quinn. It's not about who they are individually, it's about whether they align with Soldier Boy's version of order. And this is where the bigger implication starts to emerge. Because if Soldier Boy operates on that kind of logic, then his presence in the story isn't just about adding another powerful character. It's about introducing a completely different philosophy of power. One that doesn't rely on chaos or manipulation, but on strict, almost unforgiving control. That makes him both a threat and, in a strange way, a mirror to the world around him. Because while his methods are extreme, they reflect a system that has always valued strength and dominance over anything else. So when you ask why Soldier Boy killed Quinn, the answer might not be a single event or a single mistake. It might be something much broader, something tied to how he defines strength, loyalty, and control. It might be that Quinn didn't fail in a dramatic way, but in a subtle one, a way that only someone like Soldier Boy would notice or care about, and once that line was crossed, the outcome was already decided. In that sense, the reveal isn't just about understanding a specific moment, it's about understanding the mindset behind it, the way Soldier Boy processes the world, and the rules he applies to it, even when no one else can see those rules clearly. And once you see that, his actions stop feeling random or unpredictable and start feeling inevitable, like the result of a system that was always going to lead to the same conclusion, no matter who stood in that position.